And a new study reveals that Filipino elementary students still struggle with basic reading, showing little improvement since 2019. Data indicates that 7 out of 10 learners remain below the proficiency level needed to understand simple text. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first in the agenda. After several days or delays in days of intense negotiations, the House of Representatives and the Senate have finally wrapped up the Bicameral Conference Committee deliberations on the proposed 6.793 trillion peso national budget for 2026. Here's a report.
A clean and transparent budget, one that every Filipino can trust. This was emphasized by Senator Gretchen Ho, chair of the Senate Committee on Finance during budget deliberations. The Bicameral Conference Committee wrapped up its work at past 2 a.m. Thursday, December 18. At the closing of the Bicam, Senator Gretchen Ho expressed his gratitude, noting that he and the House Appropriations Committee Chair, Congresswoman Micaela Swansing, had planned to finish the bicameral deliberations on this day.
Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Finally, we have a budget that we can be proud of and responsive to the Filipino people. Nag-umpisa tayo medyo tense, medyo kinakabahan, pero ako ay kampante na itong budget na ito ay tunay na tutugon sa mga pangangailangan po ng ating mga kababayan. At ang higit sa lahat, itong budget na ito ay corruption-free.
Following the conclusion of the bicameral conference and during an ambush interview, Senator Gretchen Ho also spoke about the length of the Bicam meeting and the challenges faced before the budget was finally cleaned up and approved.
Ang hirap nitong process, lalo nitong open Bicam.
Kita niyo po ay bag sa amin ni
Mahirap. Ito napakahirap dahil walang elbow room mo to make mistakes, maliit eh. For example, nabasa mo mali. Paano mo i-correct yun? Patawag mo ulit at babay-cam kayo. Yun ang mahirap eh. No? At of course, sabi ko nga maraming na ang nagpa-participate sa discussion. So medyo tumatagal din. So it's very difficult but first time to in history. So I'm sure mag-a-adjust kami in the next few years, making sure that it's smoother at mas maayos na yung preparation.
Meanwhile, according to Congresswoman Swansing, while the deliberations were difficult, it was necessary to be extra cautious and to scrutinize every detail to ensure that nothing important was left out.
Ang napansin din namin ni Sen. Win, we were extra cautious about making sure that if ever there are items we miss out, talagang ipapasok namin, di ba, Sen. Win? Kasi, for example, yun yung sinasabi ni Sen. Win, na we want to make sure that whatever changes or adjustments we have to make, manifested siya sa floor, approved siya ng Bicam, because we really don't want to do anything that would go against our commitment towards transparency.
After 6 days of bicameral meetings, the Bicameral Conference Committee approved the 2026 budget of the Department of Public Works and Highways amounting to 529.6 billion pesos, lower than the House proposed budget. According to Senator Gretchen Ho, they will also consider criticism from netizens regarding the process and approved budget. At the conclusion of the bicameral conference meeting, several lawmakers expressed optimism and satisfaction over the approval of the budget for various agencies, particularly for agriculture, health, and education.
Starting Christmas Eve, authorities will kick off the long-planned rehabilitation of EDSA, implementing a two-phase repair program designed to keep traffic disruption to a minimum. The details in this report.
On Christmas Eve, December 24th, the long-awaited rehabilitation of EDSA is finally happening. It will be in two phases. For the first phase, the entire stretch of Rojas Boulevard to EDSA Orense in Makati will be repaired. Phase 2 will cover the stretch from Makati to Quezon City. Beginning 11 p.m. of December 24 up to 4 a.m. of January 5, the Public Works Department will undertake reblocking works and asphalt overlay on the EDSA busway, northbound and southbound. The schedule will be 24/7.
Dati, buong lane i-disrupt, kung maalala nyo, di ba? Ipapasara yan buong araw. Ngayon, hindi na ganon. There will be minimal disruption. 24/7 tayong magtatrabaho sa EDSA during the Christmas holiday and New Year holiday. Wala naman masyadong gagamit ng EDSA during this time. Pati pasahero sa busway, hindi din ganun kadami. So we will take advantage of that.
And then between January 5 and May 31 of next year, EDSA will be open again to motorists and commuters. Asphalt overlay will continue, but will only be undertaken on both northbound and southbound sections, lane by lane, from 10 in the evening up to the next day at 4 in the morning. On Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, asphalt overlay and reblocking will be done on one lane, northbound and southbound.
Yung original plan na yon, magre-require, sabi nga ni Sec Vince, 2 years diluvian traffic dahil sara lagi ang isa't kalahating lane. This time, wala na pong saradong karsada by January 5 a.m. Kaya yung mga mitigating measures like na coding, yung libre skyway, wala na yon.
According to the DPWH, advanced technology will be utilized in laying asphalt on EDSA. This, Dizon said, ensures a stronger and more sustainable build. The new plan will cost the government 6.5 billion pesos, which is much less than the original 17 billion pesos allotted for the makeover of the major thoroughfare. To help commuters who will be affected by the rehabilitation, more buses will be deployed on EDSA, while there will be additional trains at the MRT3 beginning Christmas. Transportation Secretary Giovanni Lopez also assured that the dedicated lane for buses along EDSA will not be removed. Recall that on June 1, President Bongbong Marcos suspended the planned EDSA rehab because of its possible impact on the already gridlocked Metro Manila. The chief executive also wanted the budget for the EDSA repairs slashed by half.
Transport network companies, or TNCs, get a reprieve as the LTFRB defers the implementation of the holiday surge price cap to Saturday, December 20, from its original start date of December 17. According to LTFRB Chairman Vigor Mendoza II, the postponement gives TNCs more time to comply. The holiday surge price cap will remain in effect until January 4. Meanwhile, in an interview with The Big Story, Laban TNVS President Leonardo De Leon said some TNCs have covered the reduction in surge pricing to help offset potential income losses for drivers. He added that surge pricing applies only in areas experiencing heavy traffic congestion.
Yung mga nakaraang araw po, medyo nagpanik po ang mga kasamahan natin na TNVS drivers dahil napalitaan natin yung memorandum circular na inilabas ng LTFRB ay siguradong mababawasan ang kita ng ating mga kasamahan na drivers ngayong holiday season. Pero naliwanagan naman po yung ating mga kasamahan na TNVS driver dahil tumulong na rin naman po yung transport network company kung saan po sila bumabiyahe. Doon sa ibang mga transport network company na doon nagdadrive ang mga TNVS ay patuloy pa rin po ang ating pakikipag-ugnayan sa kanila kung okay na ba sila sa sistema or tulong ng TNCs.
The armed forces insist there's no evidence that suspects in the Bondi Beach shooting had a terror training in the Philippines. The military was reacting to an Australian media report that suspects Naveed and Sajid Akram underwent military-style training in the southern Philippines in November. That's the time they visited Davao before taking a flight to Manila and then to Sydney. AFP spokesperson Colonel Francel Padilla cautioned against such speculation, stressing that based on the AFP's ground data, there is no terror organization in the country capable of giving such training. Such reports, Padilla said, are also detrimental to the country's image.
They also have the loss of senior figures, which weakened the command structures and reduced the ability of these groups to plan, direct, and sustain operations. Therefore, there is no training capability or large-scale attacks. There have been no recorded terrorist training activities, recruitment efforts, or large-scale attacks by domestic LTGs since 2016.
President Bongbong Marcos also disputed accusations that the Philippines is an ISIS training hotspot. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said such claims are misleading and based on unvalidated information. Castro is appealing to foreign media to be responsible in their statements.
Of course, the President strongly rejects the sweeping statement and the misleading characterization of the Philippines as the ISIS training hotspot. Philippine authorities, in coordination with international partners, continue to verify all available information, but no evidence has been presented to support claims that the country was used for terrorist training.
And coming right up, the price surge cap on transport network companies begins this Saturday, while the EDSA rehabilitation starts December 24. What does this mean for the commuting public? We'll break it down with the Move as One coalition. When Morning Matters returns, keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here in One News. As we know, the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board has deferred the implementation of the temporary reduction in surge pricing for transport network vehicle services. The LTFRB said moving the start of the holiday surge price cap from December 17 to December 20 will give transport network companies more time to comply. The price cap will remain in effect until January 4. Meanwhile, the long-planned rehabilitation of EDSA is set to begin on Christmas Eve, December 24. To talk more about these latest developments, we have Abigail Modales, active transport lead of the Move as One coalition. Magandang umaga sa iyo, Abigail.
Hi, Gretch. Good morning.
Okay, of course, we are centering on two issues here when it comes to the TNVS. First is the cancellation of bookings. The second one is surge pricing. And you as Move as One coalition, I know you're balancing different interests at play here. The interest of the commuting public and the interest of the drivers also. So where is Move as One coalition on those two things?
All right. So, Gretch, for the TNVS cap pricing, it's already been here. It's already been present since before. And we know that it's an effect of high demand and low supply. And so what happens here is we're balancing both interests, but we acknowledge that even if there is a cap pricing, if drivers from these TNVS companies see that it's not commensurate with their time, fuel, and opportunity cost, then most likely commuters will also not be able to get these rides. So even if there is cap pricing, if there are no rides available, the supply is low, then we have commuters and pedestrians still left for hours on end without being able to book a ride. And we see this as a result of non-prioritization of mass transport. We are seeing here a situation wherein our commuters are being forced to create or to use TNVS as their lifelines because mass transport has not been given an opportunity to become the lifeline that these commuters should be using instead.
Okay. But itong surge pricing, tama ka, hindi ito bago, no? In fact, maraming nagrereklamo dahil nagugulat sila dun sa presyo ng TNVS. Although there are already alternatives and much more competition now compared to before. But still, if you take a look at the prices, it might be equivalent to a day's wage, right? Have you taken a look at the calculations and how reasonable the surge prices are?
It's one of the things that we asked the TNVS companies for, as well as the Department of Transportation, to be clear and to be transparent about how these surge pricings or how these pricings are being computed, because it can range from in the 50s to 150 in additional pricing when you book a Grab. I'm also a TNVS user, so different TNVS I use it, and it varies across different applications. And so that is also what we ask for in the coalition, that there be transparency and openness when it comes to the computation of this pricing. But as of now, we have no figures or data to look at because it's not been given or it's not been published by TNVS companies.
Well, on the other end, you're right, no, to note that if there's high demand and low supply, and if you put a cap on it, bababa pa yung supply lalo. But on the other end, paano naman yung mga sasakay na walang budget? Pagka masyado namang itong mataas, hindi rin sila makaka-book, ano?
Correct.
What are your thoughts on that?
So we know that the TNVS or the surge pricing serves only those who are not earning daily wage. But we know that this is not realistic for our regular ordinary laborers who earn daily wage and who just wants to get home. So we know that the pricing also is exclusionary to the sense that it only caters to those who can afford it, but does not leave an option to those whose salary cannot even cover the cost of the surge in pricing with the TNVS option.
And if we're trying to balance interests here, doesn't that make the surge pricing cap or surge price cap a little bit more reasonable para kumbaga makontrol yan? Meron na ba kayo na figure out in conversations with government na paano gagawin yung price cap na yun that won't hurt both sides too much?
Right. So our position in the coalition is that this price caps is always a short-term solution. So it can help temporarily some of our commuters and some of the public that uses the TNVS, but it will not take long before it crumbles again and before we see the issues and the bigger problems it gives. So our solution for this, of course, do what is necessary. Right now, if the price cap seems necessary, it will only provide short-term solution. But the long-term solution really is to improve our supply of mass transport, our buses and jeeps, so that the general public has more options and not only the TNVS. Because what's happening right now, Gretch, is the price cap is only applicable to TNVS. So it limits the option of commuters and pedestrians who are just trying to go home. And right now, we're not giving much of an option to the commuters. This is a little reprieve, if you may, but it does not give much option to the commuters.
I do remember though, parang nagkaroon din ng issue between taxis and TNVS vehicles kasi kumbaga parang in terms of fairness over how much they charge. No? Parang may limit yung mga taxi pero pagdating dito sa TNVS, they can go as high as, the surge pricing takes them. So in effect, doesn't that level the field here, giving more demand for the traditional taxis? Or do you see this just worsening the whole problem in general?
The Carmageddon actually, Gretch, is affecting across different public transport supplies and public transport workers. So if you have a TNVS driver who does not want to drive because he sees that it's the price cap is not commensurate with the time, fuel, and opportunity cost. Then you also have taxi drivers, not only taxi drivers, but also jeepney drivers who are taking much longer time when it comes to their travel because of the bad traffic that we have right now in EDSA, in general Metro Manila. So even if it does level the playing field a little bit because people or commuters, mas magiging prefer na nila yung regular taxis kasi mas mura ito kaysa sa TNVS, still you have there the will of the public transport workers here. So kung nakikita nila na hindi naman sapat yung marireceive nila na bayad para sa traffic na kailangan nilang harapin, you're still faced with a lower supply for the commuters when it comes to public transport.
Although kahapon, na-note ko na parang medyo lumawag ang traffic, and may nakapagsabi sa akin from your group na baka dahil ito sa Tigil Pasada, because itong mga TNVS, umiikot sila sa mga, business district, like for example, here in Mandaluyong, and then sa Ortigas, and then sa BGC, etc., etc. So medyo lumuwag, pero in terms of traffic congestion, and could lead demand somewhere else, no? Have you gotten to how much the income of the TNVS drivers will be affected by this temporary price cap? That's until January 4.
We heard from the news, and we heard from some TNVS drivers that some of the TNVS companies are shouldering the difference in the price cap when it comes to the surge, and are actually subsidizing the cost that it takes for the TNVS drivers. But as to the actual, how much of it is being subsidized by the company, we are in the dark here, because it's unclear as to how much actually, or what percentage of it is being shouldered by the TNVS companies. But from what I've heard from on the ground, I take TNVS every day, and asking the drivers around, we heard that this really affects their potential income earnings by around 15 to 20%. So this is a kumbaga parang tinataga talaga sila. And I heard from most of the
Tinataga
drivers
nino?
that
Tinataga ng?
tinataga sila ng price cap.
Ng price
Because
cap. Oh.
even if this is being subsidized or this is being shouldered by the TNVS companies already. But they
Although
see
this is just about to be implemented, di ba? So hindi pa siya in place?
this was already, the price cap was already in place before. This is a short-term solution that was offered in the previous holiday rush seasons before. Gret.
Last year.
Yes.
Okay.
So this was already an experience that they had. So what they're saying is that if the companies are subsidizing it or shouldering it, it has to be a better pricing model than what they've experienced last year.
Oh, I share the same experience with you. I am also a TNVS commuter. Many times, no, I take this route kasi pag napapagod na magmaneho. At nakakausap ko rin yung mga driver. Tinatanong din natin, no, kung magkano ba kinikita ninyo, etc. And in fact, I do know several drivers also who have gone into this mode of livelihood because it's lucrative. Medyo malaki yung kinikita, no. I believe on a good day they can earn as much as 5,000 pesos. Multiply it by 30, it's a lot. Pero syempre magbabayad pa yan ng boundary, magbabayad pa yan ng pambayad ng sasakyan. So in effect, they would earn probably 1,000 to 2,000. If you take a look at that, those figures, still a lot more than the minimum wage. Right? So don't you think that the price cap was somehow bababa yung kita, understandably, but it's also for the benefit of the public for this season?
It is for the
what do you think of
benefit.
that?
Well, the TNVS price cap, the goal of it is to become beneficial for the commuters. That is the general goal why it's being implemented. But what we've seen here is this is just going to be a temporary fix, short-term fix during the holiday season, the holiday rush. Actually, Gretch, my mom is a TNVS driver, previously a TNVS driver. And so what she is able to bring back home, it's around the figure that you just said, 1,000 to 1,500. But she experienced the price cap during the holiday rush last year. Or the income that she was able to bring back home went back down to 500 to 800 pesos a day. Still high, still relatively high than the regular wage. But the truth there is you have to also think about the bills that she has to pay, and when you add it all up, yung bayad sa kotse, yung fuel na tumataas, hindi pa naman tayo nagkaroon ng substantial na rollback ulit sa ating fuel, and the time that she spends in the streets, even just going to the pickup point and then to the drop-off point. So, medyo apektado din yung mga drivers natin. But then, the position is, we need more long-term solutions other than the price cap. This is not going to be the last holiday rush that we're gonna experience. As Filipinos, we have festive Christmases, and we expect this to happen again next year. And it can't always be that the solution is a price cap, because there are different interests that are being affected, and not our public transport is not being maximized by the commuters.
So work on the supply end. That much is clear as a long-term solution. The other issue here at hand is yung cancellation of bookings, ano? And naglabas ng memorandum itong LTFRB that would penalize the drivers who cancel on short distance or non-profitable trips in favor of a higher fare charge. Where is Move as One on this?
For this, Gretch, so the coalition has not yet come up with a position on where
okay.
where we are when it comes to penalizing these drivers, because of course this is also livelihood, but then we also have to balance it with the interests of the commuters that are expecting to be picked up by these drivers, and then along the way there is cancellation happening. So at the moment, the coalition is still yet to come up with a position on it.
No, kasi this is a provision. Matagal naman na merong provision yan dun sa ating batas. Under refusal to convey passengers, which is a violation, pero nadagdag na dito sa provision to yung TNVS specifically, kasi bago itong sector in transportation. So that's something that has been added as a memorandum under joint administrative order, or rather under LTFRB Memorandum Circular 2025-055. But the other issue I wanted to talk to you about is the EDSA rehabilitation. How do you see this impacting transport, and what do you think of the solutions that they found?
So as of now, when it comes to the EDSA rehabilitation, we haven't heard much yet as to the transition plan. All we heard yet is that the bus lanes are being prioritized when it comes to the rehabilitation. There will be a relaying of the asphalt, but as to the transition, or how will the commuters be able to navigate through the rehabilitation, because I know that this was scheduled because our roads are not being used as much as in a regular day, but still there are people, our workforce are still coming to work during these days. So there is yet to be a communication on a lower level and more detailed level as to how the transport supply will be supported by the government, so that our commuters won't be affected by it. But as to the other plans, just recently we had a walk with the OTR Secretary Sec Banoy, and then DPWH Secretary Sec Vince Dizon. There was an audit that happened in the stretch of EDSA to Pasay. So we had a walk through there, and we saw that most, or if not all, of the parts of the street are non-accessible when it comes to persons with disability and to pedestrians. So the DOTR and DPWH are looking to create an EDSA that is more accessible. So at that much we know that they're looking to prioritize the movement of people instead of just the movement of cars. But what we need right now in the pre-rehabilitation phase is the transition, so that our commuters won't be affected during the rehabilitation.
This rehabilitation plan, adjusted rehabilitation plan, will focus on the asphalt overlay on EDSA using new technology, stone mastic asphalt, a newer and more durable asphalt technology. And compared to before, kung 2 taon, ngayon 8 months na lang gagawin, in 2 phases, from January or December 24 to January 5, it will happen 24 hours over the busway lanes. And from January 5 onwards, mukhang 10 p.m. hanggang 4 a.m. na lang gagawin yung trabaho. Lane by lane, hindi na yung hindi na sila mag-block off ng whole portions of EDSA. But I wanted to get your thoughts on, I guess, because there was also much talk about what could be done with EDSA. 'Di ba? Kung i-rehabilitate nyo na lang, gawin nyo ng maganda, i-widen nyo na itong mga pedestrian, pero bumagsak tayo ulit dito sa naunang solusyon, which is dati pa na ginagawa naman nila sa EDSA, 'di ba? Yung section by section na pag-aayos ng kalsada. It's the same thing we're seeing here, only we're using new technology. Are you happy? Are you happy with this solution that they've come up with? And I guess what happens now to the other aspirations for this major national highway?
Right. So way back in June, the what was communicated when it comes to the EDSA rehabilitation is this is going to be a total revamp of what the EDSA is currently right now. So it means that it's a total redesign of what EDSA is, and we've seen the design before. It's still very much car-centric, wherein we have very narrow pathways or sidewalks for pedestrians, and then the connectivity wasn't thought about that much when it comes to where commuters will be waiting for the public transport. Yun yung kulang doon sa unang design noong June, way back in June. So we protested against it through the May Tao Po sa EDSA Walk, wherein we say if we're going to revamp the EDSA this way, then we must make more spaces for people, because yun na nga yung naging problema natin. The reason why we're having all these problems when it comes to traffic is because we're not putting people first when it comes to the design. Kaya tuloy, nagkakaproblema sa supply, not only in mass public transport, but also in active mobility, people on bikes. But right now, so inurong nila, they said we'll come up with a better plan. So we'll come up with a better solution, and we'll come up with a better plan so that in the pre-rehabilitation phase, hindi magkakaroon ng problema ang mga commuters. But right now, what we're seeing is just the regular, yung pag-aayos ulit, Gretch, naaayusin lang ulit yung mga kalsada. So of course, what we're seeing here is we're just making the roads better again. But the allocation of the space, we're not doing something about it. We're going to have another EDSA again after this rehabilitation. We're going to have another EDSA that does not cater to the people and still brings the same problems that we have now.
And another band-aid solution, literally. It just seems to be the bare minimum, but we are with you in pushing that direction. Sana patuloy ang pagkakalampag po ninyo sa kanilang mga pintuan. Maraming salamat for your time today from wherever you are. We do hope you're having a good holiday season. We have Abigail Modales, Active Transport Lead of Move as One Coalition. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. A new regional study shows that most Filipino elementary students continue to struggle with basic reading, with little improvement over the past 5 years. Data from the Southeast Asia Primary Learning Metrics 2024 found that the Philippines' average reading score remained largely unchanged from 2019, leaving about 7 in 10 learners below the level needed to understand simple texts. The report cited persistent inequalities caused by poverty, language barriers, and lack of learning materials, noting a wider gap between students from poor and wealthy households. Mathematics scores, however, improved with more students reaching minimum and advanced levels. Up next, with the DPWH budget officially approved for next year, the big question remains, is it enough? We discussed that with Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Leviste when Morning Matters returns. Keep it here on One News. Good morning, Gretchen Ho. Here at Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. The Bicameral Conference Committee has approved a 529.6 billion peso budget for the Department of Public Works and Highways for 2026. The amount reflects 20.7 billion pesos in savings after lawmakers reduced overpriced construction materials using updated cost data submitted by the DPWH. Senate Finance Committee Chair Senator Win Gatchalian said the adjustments made project costs closer to actual market prices, assuring that the final DPWH budget is now free of overpricing. The DPWH budget was significantly reduced from its original proposal amid concerns over overpriced and questionable flood control projects. Let's discuss that further with Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Legarda Leviste. Good morning. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, good morning.
Okay, first of all, this development from the Bicam finally approving the DPWH budget, reducing its budget by 20.7 billion down to 529.6 billion for the DPWH. What are your thoughts on that? Is that enough of a reduction?
Better than nothing, but the price of the road projects in the DPWH budget were actually proposed by the DPWH initially to be reduced by as much as 50% for asphalt projects. And there's a reason for that, because in my own district, I saw that the asphalt projects were around 100% overpriced compared to the market. And I hope that even the bidding process can achieve these further savings, but I think it was because of a lack of time that a deeper cut was not approved.
Oo, so pwede na ito sa ngayon, tingin mo?
Dapat mas mababa pa, pero dahil kulang ang oras para ibaba ang presyo sa budget, dapat ibaba na lang ang presyo sa bidding. Kasi parang nalilimutan ng taong bayan na yung presyo na ibinibigay sa budget ay dapat yung ceiling lang. Pero sa pribadong sektor, kung ano man yung budget, minsan 10, 20, 30% ipinababa sa bidding. Kaso ang lumalabas na DPWH ay 1, 2, 3% lang ang ibinababa sa bidding. Kaya kung mag-implementa ng mga reforma sa bidding process at hindi tatanggapin ng DPWH ang mga bids na hindi malaki ang ibinababa, then pwedeng mag-savings pa ang DPWH beyond what was approved in the budget.
Pero Leandro, I do remember having you over here on the show, and you were proposing an across-the-board cut for the DPWH budget by as much as, I guess, 40%, according to the testimonies of the DPWH engineers. Nagulat ka ba nung dun sa last-minute appeal ni Secretary Vince Dizon na ibalik yung budget kasi may mga miscalculation? Or is that something you've also come to realize na was reasonable, na hindi ganun kabilis i-apply yung cost reduction na yan?
I believe that Secretary Dizon sincerely wants to lower the prices, but was made to reverse his position based on political realities. And the fact of the DPWH's computations saying that you can have 45 billion pesos in savings is still supported by the DPWH, but they became a bit more cautious in the end also because of a lack of time. But again, it doesn't mean that it cannot be achieved in the bidding process. I would want to note the following. In my district, I submitted a letter to the Committee on Appropriations to implement the lower prices just in my district. So we will be able to show that road projects can indeed be built at 50% the price that the DPWH had initially set.
Before we go to the solution that you're proposing, what do you think were the political realities that pressured Secretary Vince to backtrack on the overall cost, supposed cost reductions?
Officially, the DPWH contractors were saying they will not bid because the price is too low. And as a result, jobs will be lost and the economy will slow. I think we all know that there are big margins on DPWH projects. Only 40% of the contract prices allegedly go into the project. So there's 60% that could foreseeably be cut. But the contractors, if they all band together and say we'll just not bid, and EPWH, if they don't allow new contractors to come in and will really be able to stop biddings from happening. I would say, however, that given the country's fiscal position, it would not be bad to just cancel some of these DPWH projects compared to proceeding with overpriced projects. This is actually a point that I would like to bring up more in Congress in the coming years. The 6.7 trillion peso budget was actually set when we were at 5.5% to 6% GDP growth. And we all know that we're now at 4% and trending downwards in growth. So I think we can safely say that we cannot afford the 6.7 trillion peso 2026 budget. And the country's debt to GDP ratio has been increasing, allegedly to 63% to date, but foreseeably to 64% by the end of the year. It should be hitting 70% by the end of next year or the early part of 2027. So it's, I think, misperception that you need the DPWH budget for economic growth, because we can say we actually need to save more money because we don't have enough revenues to pay for the DPWH budget anymore.
Although government spending is part of the formula in terms of driving the GDP. So kumbaga parang if people get conservative over spending on any government project, right? Because this does not just affect the DPWH budget, it also affects everything. That could possibly be a source of corruption, right? But if we were going to do a rebidding of all the projects, how would you propose that to go? And would it be for all projects?
First, regarding government spending, I would say if only 40% of the contract price goes into the project, then there's no multiplier effect. It's actually a division effect because the profit of the contractor isn't circulating into the economy. But the fact also is that the DPWH budget has been increasing over the past years, but GDP growth has been decreasing. So history has shown that it is not contributing to economic growth. The proposal on the rebidding is based on what Secretary Babe Singson did during the Aquino administration, where if bids did not come at 10% below the approved budget for contract, then he simply had them rebid. Again, as I said a while ago, the average that I've seen DPWH projects bid is at 3% below the approved budget for contract, which we know highly improbable if there are many bidders but all happen to be bidding at almost the same price. So the allegation is almost 100% of bids in the DPWH are rigged. And that's why there are kickbacks that can be given, because contractors owe their winning the bid to it being rigged in their favor. And a quick fix beyond the budget is for the DPWH simply to reject insufficiently lower bids.
But are you okay with the same pool of contractors? But just the 10%, at least 10% below approved budget.
Can oversee the projects, and if there are fraudulent acceptances of projects as completed that are not yet completed or are substandard, then they can now see that the Ombudsman is serious about filing cases on contractors that do substandard work. The point, however, is that the prices are too high for the country to be able to say that we're really going to get more than 1 peso of growth for every 1 peso of spending in the DPWH budget.
But won't a rebidding of all projects also stall the implementation significantly?
The notion that you have to rush the DPWH projects by a month or two is totally inaccurate, because we're spending taxpayers' money. And if you don't spend it, then it's called savings. It's not like they're coming in for free. If someone wants to donate the budget for the DPWH, then it would be a true statement, but not if it's coming from taxpayers' money.
Okay. Another part of the budget that was contentious is yung social aid. One of which is the MAIFIP program. What are your thoughts on that? 51 billion peso funding approved for the Department of Health. The House initially proposed 49 billion. It was slashed to 29 billion by the Senate. At ibinalik yung 51 billion. If we're talking about putting money where it's supposed to be, and this 50 billions going to the MAIFIP program, what do you think that's an efficient way of spending it?
I agree that the funding should go to PhilHealth and the hospitals directly instead. But I have a different point to make on this, which is the reason why you can incentivize Congress to appropriate a large amount to health is when there is a program like MAIFIP. If there is no political benefit for the funders to do so, then they will not fund health at all. So it's, I think, in some respects, a choice between whether you want to fund MAIFIP or DPWH, not whether you want to fund MAIFIP or PhilHealth.
Kumbaga parang okay na to kasi may budget na, may additional budget naman that will go to people's health.
Kasi kung hindi naman mapakinabangan nito politically, then gagamitin na lang yung budget na yan sana para sa DPWH. Kasi yung funding na ito ay nanggaling sa 255 billion na na-slash mula sa flood control. Yung 255 ng flood control ay inilipat sa PhilHealth para ibalik yung sinabi ng Supreme Court na ibalik para sa MAIFIP, para sa DepEd. Those much are better than the other uses. But some of the other uses of the 255B were additional AICs to pad a new form of social aid in the DA for farmers and fisher folks that are selected, and the increase in the budget of farm-to-market roads. And I think that it would have been more responsible for us to instead approve the 2026 budget. But what I have come to see in the budget process is that the proponents will try and spend every peso that can be spent. Even the 6.7 trillion budget is not enough to satisfy all of the requests for budget in government. But I think it's going to eventually catch up with us when we run out of money that we can borrow to continue to spend as much as we do.
And with all of those realities, how do you think can we create a budget where people won't have to knock on politicians' doors to beg for these social aid programs and rely on the system instead? Do you think that's feasible in our lifetime, in your future years as a public servant? Posible kaya yun?
I think all these problems will be solved and replaced by a bigger problem in the next few years, which is all of these social aid programs are being funded by debt, and we will not be able to borrow enough money in a few years' time to continue these social aid programs. So there will be no more social aid programs at all when we can no longer borrow enough money.
That would be the bigger problem.
Yes. Again, as I said a while ago, debt to GDP has gone up now to 64% and will reach 70% in a year or a year and a half's time. So I think when that happens, we're already spending around 20% of government revenues on interest payments alone, and we'll be spending 30% of government revenues on interest payments alone in maybe 3 years' time. And this will mean that there will be no fiscal space for DPWH, MAIFIP, AICs, or other forms of pork barrel, which I think will solve the issue that people are raising, but be replaced by an even worse problem.
Although now, isn't it the right time also to put the pressure on the social aid programs to at least be more institutional in nature? Isn't it the right time to do it? Kasi nga, meron ng mga nagpo-push back ng mga legislators, particularly in the Senate. We see them not supporting these patronage pork-laden programs. Your thoughts on that?
Again, as I'm pointing out, this is a temporary scenario because we're still borrow 1.7 trillion pesos a year for our deficit. But if the GDP of the country is growing by only 2 to 4% next year, and it continues this way and spending continues to increase, we won't have much pork barrel that we can afford to spend in 2 or 3 years' time to begin with.
Speaking of more permanent solutions, Leandro, one of the things that was brought up by the president himself, and also he directed Congress to prioritize, is an anti-political dynasty bill. You come from a well-known family in Batangas. Do you consider yourself part of a political clan?
I agree with the proposed anti-dynasty political bills and the principle that there should only be a limit in line with the Constitution on how many should be per family in politics. But I actually have a different solution also, which is an anti-politician bill. I would like to also propose in Congress, which is to reduce the number of political positions in the Philippines. Because actually the Philippine Constitution initially set a limit of 250 seats in Congress, and it has been revised by law to now 318. And the Philippine Congress actually has more seats than Congress or parliaments of countries with larger populations than the Philippines. This is why there are 2, 3, or 4 members of Congress from families, because there are so many seats. If we, for example, half the number of seats, then you wouldn't need a husband and a wife to both be in Congress. I hope they would be satisfied with only having 1 seat.
But the proposal in the bill of Speaker Boji D defines dynasties up to the 4th civil degree. Pero in clusters, ano? So merong national cluster, merong provincial, may municipal, iba pa yung sa barangay level. Do you agree with those definitions? Or do you share the view of other groups that says this will only or might legitimize political dynasties?
I agree with making it stricter because I'm coming from the perspective that we can't afford to have so many seats in Congress to begin with. I can just add one thing. There's a fixed overhead cost to every position created in government. They all have offices and operating expenses. And we can reduce the overhead cost of positions in government through a very restrictive anti-political dynasty bill, then this would be a very good idea economically. But I would also add that it also should be done for reasons beyond just slashing political dynasties, because there are many other problems with our elected officials. Many of them, of course, are also there for the wrong reasons. So it's not just political dynasties that you should reduce, it's just politicians in general.
Sana nga, no, para hindi na pupunta yung buwis ng taong bayan sa mga politiko lamang. And we should have real representation in government. And speaking of efficient spending of money, the Office of the Vice President got back its original budget proposed, which is 889 million. This was already reduced to 733 million in the House. Pero mukhang ibinalik. Are you for that? Increasing back the budget of the Office of the Vice President?
That's not even half the allocable of one congressman. So I think it's more important to focus on how we can slash the budget based on the allocable numbers of the budgets of congressmen.
So this is reasonable for you?
It's not surprising in Philippine government. The personnel services for the whole government might be 2 trillion pesos. And by the way, I think that budget that you cite is mostly personnel services. It's not like it's any capital outlay, or it's very minimal maintenance and operating expenses. And I think that there's a call for a right-sizing bill that has never really passed because we create more and more slots in government every year. But if people want to slash the budget of that office, I would say let's slash the budget of all offices.
All right. Mukhang Elon Musk, Donald Trump route. Si Leandro. Right? Okay. Maraming salamat for sharing your time with us this morning and giving your thoughts on the approved budgets at the Bicam. We have Batangas 1st District Representative Leandro Legarda Leviste. Moving on to sports, Filipino athletes captured more medals at the 33rd Southeast Asian Games. Team Philippines has raked in 38 golds, 55 silvers, and 120 bronze medals for a total of 213. The trio of Kira Ellis, Kim Mangrobang, and Raven Faith Alcoseba struck gold in the all-women relay event. Inaki Lorbes, Fernando Casares, and Matthew Hermosa also won gold in the men's relay. Seaball men reasserted their dominance in the region after yet another gold in Mobile Legends Bang Bang. Meanwhile, the Philippine women's national football team has won their first gold medal in the Southeast Asian Games. They outlasted defending champions Vietnam. And some of today's must-watch games include the gold medal match featuring tennis ace Alex Iala against Thailand's Mananshaya Sawangkao. Gilas Pilipinas and Alas Pilipinas also continue their quest for glory. And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you the right start to your morning. Let's go ahead and make the day matter. My name is Gretchen Ho. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time.